Hi, so just a video to talk through how we can set this system up. So you would obviously just create your survey as you normally would, but basically the first time that someone comes in and takes the survey, we need to gather some personal information about this person so that we can send out the survey to them every day after this. So I'm just going to add a couple of questions into the very beginning of my survey that are just going to be text entry or an actual, I'll start off with a form question type. So I'm going to maybe say email, first name, last name, and any other information that you want to store on this person. We don't have to ask this each time they take the survey, we can just ask this once. So any information that you want to store on your participant, just add them in here, just add as many form fields as you would like in here. I'm going to bring these out a little bit more so that they have more space to type in. And that's perfectly fine now. So what we need to do is we need to set up a contact list trigger to basically add this person to a contact list when they the first time they take the survey. So I'm just going to say personal info, for example, personal details. Okay. So once we have all of the personal details set up, what we need to do is we need to pass this into a contact list so we could send the survey out to them in future. So if we go to triggers and contact list triggers, we are going to select a contact list to add these people to. So we're probably going to go ahead and create a new contact list and one that's completely blank and start from fresh. We just give this a name, so I'm going to call it test for now and give it a save. Then what we need to do is we need to pull in the first name, last name, and email address of each one. So I'm going to pull in the first name from a question, and it's going to be the personal details, and it's going to be the first name. I'm going to do the same for the last name and the same for the email address. Now, the only thing that we need, that we absolutely need, is the email address. You don't need to pull in first name and last name, but you can, and if you have additional fields you want to pull in, then you would just add them as embedded data here and pull them in from wherever you wish. But once we have now added those people, we're just going to click save. So now as people come in and take the survey for the first time, they're going to be added to that contact list so we can send to them a little later on. Now what we need to do is we need to first of all hide this from the people who are coming in to take the survey a second time, and also start incrementing a count so that we know how many times this person has actually taken the survey. So they're supposed to take it 14 times, so we're basically going to increment it each time they take the survey. So if we go into survey flow, we're going to add a new element here, and we're going to add some embedded data. We're going to move this up the top here, and we are going to call the first one recipient email. And the reason we are doing this is because if the person is coming from a contact list, so aka they're coming in for their second time or more, then recipient email is going to populate here. So we are going to be able to tell straight away if someone's coming in for the first time, because it's going to be blank. And if they're coming in for the second or further times, it's going to be empty right here. Then what we want to do is we want to add a new field, and we're going to call this just something, like anything we really want at all, basically. So in this case, maybe we're going to call it count, because we want to count how many times the person has come into the survey. That's going to populate up here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a new element down the bottom to increment this once they've actually finished the survey. So we're going to call this also count down here. We're going to set a value now, and we are going to pipe in, we're going to do a math operation to basically pipe in the count that they are already on and add 1 to it. So each time they come in, we're going to find their current count, and then we're going to add 1 to it every time they finish. So we're going to go to embedded data field, and we're going to type in count again, which is going to insert the value from up here. And then we're going to turn this into a math operation by saying $E. Oh, sorry, not $E $, $E. And then everything within the curly brackets will be separated by space, and we're just going to do the count plus 1. So then we need to actually add this to the contact list as well for it to increment each time. So what we're going to do is we are going to add a new element. Sorry, we don't actually need to do that. My apologies. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to go ahead and save the flow now, because that's all we need to add in here. We're going to go back to our tools, and we're going to go to triggers and email triggers. So in this case, what we're going to do, not email triggers, contact list triggers. Sorry, I'm getting confused now. Contact list triggers. So what we're going to do is we are going to set up, in this case, additional field, and this is going to be called count. And it's coming from our embedded data field called count. So that's going to be passed through. Now this email trigger or contact list trigger, we only want to fire if they're coming in and taking the survey for the first time. So we're going to go ahead and add a condition up here, and we are going to say if embedded data field recipient email is empty, because this is telling us that they're coming in for the first time. And when they're coming in for the first time, we are passing through their first name, their last name, their email address, and their account. So this is always going to be 1 for the first time around. Then we're going to go ahead and add a different trigger, and this is going to be the one that is gone through every time you come in for the second time onwards. So our condition this time is going to be if embedded data recipient email. And this is case sensitive, so make sure it's typed the exact same way. Then we're going to say is not empty. Then we're going to go to the same contact list again, so we're going to go to our test contact list. I know I have a few of these, but just pretend it's the same one. And we're going to leave update existing list members the same. And for our email, we're going to piping in the embedded data information, or the recipient info actually we can do, of email. And we're going to pass through our count embedded data field again. So count is equal to embedded data count. And that's it. So the first time around we're adding all of the information. The second time around we're only updating the count. To do that. And the reason we need 2 different ones is because the first time around we're adding the email address from the question, and the second time around we're adding the information from what we already have stored in the contact list. So that's why we need 2 triggers here. And we're going to go ahead and save those triggers. The last thing we need to do here is add some display logic to this question to make sure that this only displays for people who are taking the survey the first time around. So again, we're just going to do if embedded data recipient email is empty, then that means if is empty, then that means it's their first time coming in to take the survey, and they will only see it then. Every other time they take the survey, it's just going to skip straight by this question. So that's it in terms of setup on the email end. So now all we need to do is actually start setting up our distributions. And to do this, we're going to be creating some samples from our contact list. And the reason we're going to set up samples is because each time someone comes in and takes the survey, their count is going to increment. Basically, once that count reaches 14, it means that they've taken the survey 14 times. So we no longer want people to be able to take the survey after that. So we need to set up a sample to say that anyone in the contact list, we only want to distribute the survey to people in the contact list whose count is less than 14. And that leaves everyone who is at 14 without receiving an email, which is exactly what we want. So we're going to go through to contacts. We are going to click on the create sample button here. We're going to select a contact list, which will be our test contact list. And you can do this before anyone is even added to the contact list, so that's perfectly fine. Our sample name is going to be 14 days, for example. Our sample size is going to be left 500 because that means there's only a maximum of 500 people. It will never reach that high, so it doesn't matter. But we are going to add a sample condition, and we are going to say if embedded data count is less than 14. Count is less than 14. So this is only going to send to people whose count is less than 14. Everyone who is on 14 will not receive any more emails. So we are going to generate this sample. Now what we need to do is when we're actually distributing, instead of distributing to the entire contact list, we are distributing to that sample, who is always going to assess who has not taken the survey 14 times out of that contact list. So this doesn't matter what stage this person was added to the contact list, as long as they haven't taken the survey 14 times, we're going to distribute to them. So this is where we will go into the distributions tab right here. We will go to, we want to compose an email. Who we want to send it to is go to My Library, and we're going to search for 14 days. Okay, so I just realized this isn't pulling in because we actually have no one in the contact list at the moment, so there's no one to actually send the survey to at this moment. So what I would recommend is, if you're setting this up for the first time on the when you're going, is to just go ahead and add someone manually to the contact list, just called test@test.com or something like that, just so that you have a contact in your contact list that will flow into your sample. And in that way, then we will actually be able to distribute. So just pretend I've gone ahead and done that. So we would go to our select contacts, we would go to My Library, and we would search for that contact list, which is 14 days. In this case, I'm just going to use 4 digits as an example. And we would go ahead and go to our sample, Oh, that's maybe where it is. So test. And I have a lot of tests, but you would find the one, you would go to the samples and you would find your 14-day sample, for example. There it is. So here it is. We don't need to add someone to testatest.com. It just says the sample is empty. But as people who come in and take the survey, this will actually happen. So what we then do is we select when we want to send it. So if you are setting this up for the first day, for example, you would go ahead and set it up at a custom day and time to say, okay, I want my first email to go out the day after the first person takes my survey. So more than likely you're going to be setting this up the day that your first person is taking your survey so that you can set it up for all the future people. So say, for example, today was the first day that someone took my survey. So I might want to say send in 1 day, for example. Now, it's not letting me put in an hour. So if you do want to put in a specific time, you would do it custom. But I would do my first one for 1 day. I would put in the subject of 14 days, for example. Then I would type in whatever message I want into this. Remember, this is going to go to different people on different days. Now, if you want to make it customizable, you could, for example, put in the pipe text of their embedded data field. So you could say, hey, pipe text first name, for example, contact list first name. So, hey, John, for example, this is your, and then you could say, for example, or this is day. And then you would use your pipe text to pipe in your embedded data field count again and click insert. And then we could turn this into our math operation again to say that if we just put in the count, it would be the count from yesterday. So if we just do +1, for example, in here, it means that this is day, and if they took the first survey yesterday, this would be 1 + 1. So this is day 2 of your journey. And this will dynamically change for each person. So the day of their journey is going to actually pipe in here. Then this is going to be their unique link that they would take to take the survey for however many days. Then we would go ahead and go down to show advanced options. So we'd make sure that it does stay individual. And then our link expiration is going to be expires in 1 day. And this will give them 1 day to take the survey. You can then go ahead and schedule this mail. So I'm just going to go ahead and send in 1 day, for example. And this is where it's not quite automatic, but you can imagine you can set this to be, you can set up as many of these right now as you want to go as far into the future as you would like. So once we go in and do that, what I would recommend doing is edit distribution, go back in and have a look, is once you've finished creating this message, I would save this message and save it as 14 days, for example, because this will save you a lot of hassle moving forward. So once you have the first day done out, then all you need to do is you need to go to compose email, pull in your 14-day contact list again. Again, I'm just going to do this for now. And just pretend that's my 14-day. Just my contact lists are very messy at the moment. Then you would go and send in 2 days' time. So you go to custom and send in 2 days' time at whatever time. You would do your test subject, and then you would load a message, and this is going to be your 14 days message, which is going to be the same as before. So it's going to pipe in the day of their journey and their first name. Then you go to advanced options and make sure that your link expires in 1 day, schedule email, and you would do this for as many days as you want. So you won't have to just set it up 14 times. You'll have to keep going because each person may come in at different days. So I mean, you could set this for 14 days in advance. You can do 14 of these right now, and then in like a couple of days time come in and set up a few more, but just make sure that there's constantly emails being sent out. But this, thanks to your sample, this is only sending to people who have not yet taken it 14 times. This is just an extra bit of like a definition. You don't need to do any of this at all, but I think it makes it a bit more personable for your person. And like I say, the first time they come in and take the survey, we're just gathering the information, shooting that off to a contact list. Second time they come in, we're going to recognize that they've already taken the survey. We're going to increment their count. We're not going to show them that first question. And each time they come in, it's just going to be the same thing. That count is going to keep incrementing until they've hit 14. And then they're not going to receive any more emails. So I know that's a lot of information, but I hope it all makes sense and I hope it's helpful. But if you do have any questions around this, please just let me know.